Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Dealing with Pre-College Jitters workshop presented to you by the LMS Mentors. My name is Leslie Goosen-Robledo, and I'm a rising fourth year in the History of Art department, pursuing a PhD, and I have been with the mentor program just over a year.
And I'm Jasmine Sanders. I am a rising third year PhD student in the sociology department, and I have been with the LMS Mentor program a little over a year as well. Leslie and I came in together in, I think it was the spring of 2019. So just a little bit about the LMS Mentor program. So we work with the undergraduate advising office as LMS Mentors. And LMS Mentors supplement and support the work of LMS advisors. So we are all current graduate students. Most of us are PhD students here at Cal. So we can really speak to undergraduate students about the general experience of being a student on Cal's campus, really navigating Cal, which can be a little difficult at times, and we've all been there. We can also speak to our own undergraduate experiences at our institutions, and then also any work experiences that we've had as we have transitioned into graduate school. But we also all are GSIs, which are graduate student instructors, or have served as GSIs in the past. And so we can also speak to the experiences of students as faculty members. And so we kind of serve as a liaison between your college experience as a student, since we are students, as well as like a college experience from a faculty perspective, since we are instructors. So we love to talk to students about some of the social, emotional experiences of being a student at Cal. So trying to figure out your major, thinking about what's next after you graduate, as well as things like time management, and really great skills to hone for studying. So that's just a little bit about the program, and we're excited to dig into some of the things that we are thinking about, or that we were thinking about when we were coming to college, and that we now have a little bit more insight on as graduate students.
Yeah, thank you, Jasmine. And we're really excited to have this webinar with you today. I know these are really non-normative times. We'll be also getting into what it looks like, to be transitioning to Cal during a pandemic. So it's one of the topics we will be covering. We will also be looking at what it looks like to live in the Bay Area and Berkeley specifically, especially for those of you who are coming from other areas or other parts of the world. We will be looking at getting involved in the campus community. Cal is very large, and as Jasmine was saying, in general, college can be really overwhelming to navigate, so we'll be offering some resources and tips. And then at the end, we will reserve time to answer your questions. But we also want to note that we have advisors on the call who can answer questions as they come up, so feel free to plug in your questions in the Q&A function, and then questions that we don't get to, we will open up the floor and answer at the end of the webinar. So there'll be time for that. So the objective of this webinar really is to we hope that you walk away with a general knowledge of what to expect at Cal, and to kind of give you a preview of what you can expect so that you can prepare before you come. We hope that you have and get general insight about the culture of Berkeley and the Bay Area in general. Every city in the country, and I think specifically the West Coast, has such a vibrant culture that we want to speak to, that many students are attracted to specifically, which is probably why you chose Cal. So we'll kind of get into that. And then we also want to expose you to some clubs and organizations. I know that's going to look very differently now with the pandemic and with many folks not physically coming to campus. But we do know that some of you will be coming, and for those of you who will be coming at a later point, whether that is next semester or the following semester, we wanted to give you those previews. And we also hope that you walk away feeling like many of your questions, or at least some of them, have been answered or addressed.
So the first item on our agenda is transitioning to Cal during a pandemic. In this section, we will briefly explore remote learning and time management, dorm life, the campus layout and the area, and a few quirks about Berkeley that we want to give you the heads up on. So one of the things that may be really different as you are transitioning into Cal is that you have so much more freedom and autonomy in college. So whether you're coming from high school or maybe even a community college, college in general, or a four-year institution, grants you a ton of more freedom and autonomy, which is really great, but it can also be very difficult to manage and slightly overwhelming. And so one of the things that we always tell students to take time, this is the perfect time over the next couple of weeks and months that you have before you transition into Cal, to really think about what are some of the ways that you can make sure you're optimizing your time and being really productive once you get to campus. So things that you may want to start thinking about is, how do you operate best now? So when you're doing work, whether it's reading a book or maybe even listening to a podcast, what do you need to be your best self in that working space? So do you need complete silence? Do you need time breaks? Or will things become distracting when you have different breaks? Start to think about, like, how are you operating now? Even if you're at home or if you're maybe working, how do you best work now? Because those are going to be the things that you will use and build upon once you start college in the fall. The other thing that we would really encourage people to think about are your procrastination triggers. So some of you may be saying, like, what are procrastination triggers? So those are the things that really hinder you when you're thinking about tasks that need to be completed. Like, what is stopping you from doing that? And so some triggers could be encountering course material that you're uncomfortable with, or getting stuck on one problem, and as a result, you just, put it off and don't do it. Just general tiredness or dread of a big assignment. All of those things are triggers to your procrastination. So procrastination doesn't just spring up. There's always a trigger. And so start identifying those triggers now, because the best way to actually attack procrastination is to know what those triggers are, and you can better get to the root of the issue when it comes up. So those are a couple of tips to think about. The other thing that is really interesting, and all of my friends, I'm sure you all may have seen this on social media, all of my friends keep sending me the meme that says, why did I even buy a 2020 planner? And while it's funny, it's, a little sad because I was very excited about my planner this year. I spent a lot of money on it, but I have found that even during this time, during this pandemic, it's really important for you to start thinking about the ways you want to manage your time. So even though we may be remote in the fall and your class may not be meeting in person, there doesn't give you an excuse not to set out the time that you need to make sure that you're accomplishing your tasks. So you want to start thinking about, what type of person am I? Am I a hard copy person? Do I like to have things in an online system like a Google Calendar, or maybe something even more advanced like Trello, which is an online system to help you organize different tasks? And then the other thing you want to think about, if you are a hard copy person or if you're an online tool person, having an online or having a time management tool without it being efficient isn't helpful. So think about how you're maximizing your time management tool. So are you using, and this is actually something I learned from Leslie, are you using the Pomodoro method, where you are working for 25 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break, and then you work another 25 minutes and take a 5-minute break? And that was something that Leslie taught me, and I loved it because I find that when I work for hours and hours on end, that's a procrastination trigger. I, never get finished. But I find that when I break up into manageable tasks, like 25 minutes and a 5-minute break, I can take some time, check Instagram, maybe respond to a couple of text messages, and then get right back into it. So you definitely want to think about how are you not only setting up yourself for success with a time management tool, but how are you maximizing that tool? Are you writing in how you're going to plan that time out? So start thinking about that and be honest with yourself. Don't say, oh, I'm going to work for 3 hours if you know you can't really work for 3 hours. Like, be honest with yourself and your tool so that you can really maximize that time.
So next on the docket is covering dorm life. And when we first generated this webinar and gave it last year, it looked very differently because we were not living under a pandemic, and thinking about how to transition and navigate dorm life these days and in this current situation is going to look very, very differently. So for those of you who will be coming to campus and who will be in a situation where you're going to be living with a roommate, I want to acknowledge that this is probably the first time that you're going to be living alone, which is super exciting and can also be very nerve-wracking. It can be really scary. It can cause a lot of ambivalence, a lot of doubt. So the tip that we have for you, and the tip that we have for all of you as you come to campus at a later point, is that it's super important to practice your communication skills and to sit down with your roommate and discuss your boundaries, discuss your habits, discuss your expectations. We know that that can feel really awkward, and maybe you want to come in and be like, no, like I'll be cool with everything will be fine. I promise you, issues will arise. So it's really, really good to set those boundaries from the beginning and develop those streams of communication so that it doesn't escalate and it doesn't get awkward in the long run. I think this is especially important as you come to campus and we continue to cope with living under pandemic circumstances, especially because you're going to be spending so much more of your time in the dorm. And these are not big spaces, right? They're very close quarters. You will be sharing not only space, but you will also be sharing schedules. You will be interfering with, not interfering, I frame that as not a bad thing, but you will be sharing space in a way that can interfere with each other's schedules. So it's really important to communicate, right? It's important to let your roommate know what you expect, let your roommate know when you're about to go into a meeting, when you're about to have class, so that they can be mindful of your space and your schedule. Which leads us a little bit into the non-dorm life aspect. So for those of you, whether you're coming to campus or you are staying put where you currently are, adjusting to remote learning has been one of the hardest and most challenging things that I think I have had to do, even as a graduate student, and definitely have heard from undergrads, is really, really tough. It's not only taxing mentally, because being, plugged into Zoom and into virtual classes can be really draining, but it's also really hard to organize yourself around it and maintain a separation between life and work, which is already difficult to begin with. So we have a couple of tips around that, and we really, really want to stress the importance of trying to distinguish between spaces. So while you are going to be probably in the same space because we're shelter in placing still, you want to make sure to set up a space where you go to work, where your brain can begin to map out, that's where I work, and this is where I hang out, and this is where I relax. I know we all might have the tendency of, at least I do, of waking up and immediately whipping out my laptop and laying in bed and having coffee and going on calls and doing all this stuff. It's fun at first, and then it gets to be really taxing because I never feel like I have a separation between relaxing and between working. So our big tip is to intentionally identify and set up a workspace. I know for many of us, we don't have perhaps a lot of space to work with, but a corner or even somewhere on the floor where you can have a table, ideally a desk situation area where you can go and sit comfortably and work on a flat surface, would be ideal, but definitely a space that is not your bed and that is preferably not the couch either. You want to make sure to have some sort of separation so that you avoid what we kind of call it's like Zoom fatigue, right? Like it helps you kind of get out of this constant fatigue of being plugged in all of the time. Especially because on the computer, not only are we working now, but it's also oftentimes a space where we relax in terms of like streaming the web, watching Netflix. So having separation of space is going to help you in the long run. Another and a couple of other tips that I want to note that is similar to the last slide is that you also, whether you're on campus or not, want to communicate with those around you when you go to have classes and when you go to have meetings. Setting up those communication streams and those boundaries of like, hey, I'm about to have a Zoom call, like be mindful of your noise level is going to be really, really helpful. We also suggest that you wear headphones during the calls. It really helps with noise interference. And helps also for the folks who are on the call with you hear you better. And then lastly, I really want to stress the importance of taking breaks. I think it's super important, especially now when we're doing so many things at home and in the home space, to take a break and completely walk away from your work, if it's even just for 5 minutes. So in between tasks, or maybe if you need a break during a longer task, try to step outside if it's safe and you feel comfortable to go on a socially distanced walk, or try to do a completely different activity to refresh your mind, because there's something really curious about being on the computer all of the time that is actually feeling more draining than it typically would if you were on campus and going to class from space to space. So remember to take breaks. I know for some of us, we might feel like breaks are a form of procrastination, which they can turn into, as Jasmine was saying, or they're a form of slacking. And I just want to go ahead and debunk all of that. They're super important when they're done intentionally. So taking intentional breaks is very, very important. So we wanted to touch on a couple of quirks about Berkeley. Again, I know that it's good for some of you, it's going to be a little bit longer before you're here, but something to know, and that will apply to all of you, is that Berkeley runs on this funny thing called Berkeley Time, which I didn't know when I first came. So what Berkeley Time means is that every class starts 10 minutes after the hour. And this is applied even over Zoom. So even in your virtual classes, this tends to be the general protocol. So when I first came to Cal, I didn't know that. And I went to class and I sat in class and the professor wasn't there and the students weren't there. And after about 5 minutes, I started panicking and wondering if I was even in the right place. And it wasn't until about, 7 or 8 after that people started trickling in. And it wasn't until everybody was there where I was like, wait, I thought class started 10 minutes ago, that I learned that Berkeley Time is a thing. So do know that. You don't need to come directly on time. The 10 minutes are really there to kind of scaffold your timing so that you can get from building to building. Obviously that looks different now and more over Zoom. So I think, the tip here is you definitely want to make sure and check in with your classes that they are running on Berkeley Time. And even when we go back to campus and are not functioning over Zoom, it's important to check in, because while this tends to be the general rule, there are several classes in certain departments that do not prescribe to Berkeley Time. So while that's the general culture, it's important to be sure, because you don't want to get caught in a situation where you're constantly late to class and the professor gets annoyed.
Great. So the second part of this presentation, we'll be looking at what it's like to live in Berkeley and the Bay Area. So a couple of things that we want to make sure to note and touch upon in this section are the updated social distancing and precaution measures mandated by Alameda County, our general impressions and experiences of living here in the Bay, places to go and see, and food recommendations. So we know that people are, one of the great things about Cal students is they literally come from everywhere, every single part of this country and the world. And so, especially with this pandemic, every state and every country has a different way of how they are addressing and handling the pandemic. So despite California's large reopening as a state, the governor allowed counties and cities to create their own mandates that are best served for their jurisdiction. So Alameda County, which is where Berkeley is located, is operating under much slower reopening guidelines and a much more strict shelter-in-place restrictions. So, for example, and my family is from Alabama, and my sister lives in Atlanta, Georgia. So I call them all the time, and they're like, wait, you have to wear masks to go into the grocery store? And I'm like, yep. So our mandates are a little bit more strict. So, for example, masks are required to enter grocery stores or most commercial buildings. Indoor dining and cosmetic services like barbershops and nail salons have not opened, and they're currently restricted at the time. So it's something to think about as you begin to transition back into the Bay Area. It may look very different, and in most cases, it is very different from where you are now. So one of the tips that we have particularly for this is to make sure to check the Alameda County website. So I am actually going to put that website in the chat right now. But make sure to familiarize yourself with the Alameda County shelter-in-place mandates, which are currently in place, and frequently check this website. So we are in the process of different phases of reopening. So by the time some of you all get here in the fall or even in the spring, these mandates may look very different, and most likely they will. So it's just always really important to keep that up to date and frequently checking it so that you are in compliance and that you're absolutely doing whatever safety measures you need to take to make sure that you're complying with Alameda County mandates. So one of the other interesting things, and that one of the things that I loved coming to Berkeley, so I moved here from New York City, which is also a pretty diverse and progressive place, but I've obviously lived in Alabama and Atlanta. So one of the things that I absolutely love and why people come to live here is that it is very much a liberal and progressive place. The campus really embraces all perspectives and walks of life. But we also think it's very, very important to note that the Bay Area is undergoing massive change and gentrification. And so as newcomers to this area, we definitely want to be thoughtful about our interactions and our impact on this space and recognizing, you know, the culture that exists already in Berkeley and in Oakland before we arrived, and really respecting that culture in that space. Another thing is that it's important to remember that even in a remote environment, diversity of perspectives and experiences are still upheld and really critical to an inclusive learning environment, even online. And so even if we're not going to physically be here in the Bay Area in Berkeley, making sure that you're keeping an open mind. The beautiful thing about college is that it is the one place that you really get to challenge some of your own mindsets and be exposed to different perspectives. So continue to keep that open mind as we engage in remote learning online as well, and take this as an opportunity to interact with people that are different from you in a very inclusive and respectful way.
So I wanted to touch on, you know, as Jasmine was talking to about how open and liberal and centrally located Berkeley is and the Bay Area at large, to really also touch on like the geography of this place, which is so special and is so well situated and close to so many things, which is really, really exciting for the undergrads who come and study at Berkeley. So a big thing to know is that Berkeley is a city that is couched between Oakland and Albany and then other surrounding cities. And these are also other very, very exciting cities. So there's a lot to do and see in Oakland. And just across the bay, which you can see from our campus, we have this really, really gorgeous view if you go up to the Campanile where you can see the entire bay and the bridges. We have San Francisco, which is, you know, I'm sure all of you know, is also a very exciting and booming place with many, many things to do. So as you come and you explore this space, it's really important that you stay open-minded so that you can take advantage of all the things that are around the city. So one of the things that we wanted to point out and bring your attention to was the Berkeley Rose Garden, which is right just kind of north of campus is this gorgeous, gorgeous rose garden that I believe is still open currently because it's an outdoor space. And also the Redwoods and Tilden Park. So Tilden is more in the Berkeley area, and it's this kind of recreational space where there's a lot of trails and a lot of nature and really, really good hiking, which you can go and check out. And then the Redwoods are more on the Oakland side. Similarly, there's a lot of trails that you can hike on. So as you come and you learn a little bit more about this space, we highly encourage you to take advantage of our geographic location. And do all the activities and explore all the activities that there are to do in this area. And as Jasmine was saying earlier, just make sure that you are complying with social distancing protocols and mandates that Alameda County has put forth. And if you're not sure if a park or a trail or an outdoor space is open, we encourage you to go ahead and Google ahead of time so that you don't go and then realize that it's not open. We also, you know, for those of you who are going to not come and be with us this semester, but will come at a future time, and even for those of you who are coming, wanted to put on your radar a tip for how to get involved with Berkeley and kind of the Bay Area community virtually. So there is this really, really incredible museum in Oakland called the Oakland Museum that typically on the first Friday of every month would have this very robust festival art event that would align with Oakland's First Fridays, which was also kind of an extension of that. It was very much an exhibition of artwork and craft work and just community work in general, with a lot of food and music, and this whole strip of Telegraph, which, as you will learn when you get here, not only ends literally at our campus, South Gate, but extends all the way down Oakland. Telegraph is such a massive street. So in the Oakland part of it, Telegraph would be shut down, and that's where kind of Oakland's First Fridays would unfold, and the museum would host its events in conjunction to that. That was something I think many of us looked forward to on the first Friday of every month. But obviously with the pandemic, these large events are not happening. So what the museum has done is that they've adapted their First Fridays, and now we're offering virtual First Fridays, where you can have access to exhibitions, to workshops, to events, all virtually. So I would highly recommend checking out their website and learning what programming they have in place. It's usually very exciting. It's usually really cool. There's a lot to learn. They're very engaged with the community, so it's a good way to kind of take a temperature and get to know not only Oakland, but I think Bay Area culture at large. And another event that they run is Night Out, Night Off, which is similar in that it offers several programmings. I think they do film screenings, and that too is also aligned with their First Friday eventing or programming. So we highly recommend that for those of you who are coming, and for those of you who are still going to be in your respective spaces, to check out these programs, because it's really, really cool what they've done and how they've adjusted with the pandemic.
So my favorite topic, food. So Berkeley and the East Bay in general is really known for their amazing and varied food options. So there are a lot of great places to grab coffee and do some work near campus, and there's a ton of food around as well. So when you all are all able to come back to campus, we wanted to give you a few heads up on our favorite food and coffee areas in the immediate campus area. So Strata Cafe, Cafe Milano, and Blue Door Cafe have all seen me lots over the past couple of years, but they are great places to grab coffee if you're having a meeting and perhaps collaborating on a project with teammates or some of your classmates. That is a perfect place to get some work done and also grab some coffee. Especially coming out of the pandemic, we want to make sure that we're supporting our small businesses. And so while they love to have Berkeley students there, we do want to make sure that we are supporting them financially as well. So grab a coffee or a small muffin. Any small thing can help, especially since they're providing us a space to get work done with free Wi-Fi often. We want to also support them, especially coming out of what has been a very turbulent time for them. So definitely check out Cafe Strata, Cafe Milano, and Blue Door Cafe, as well as Northside Cafe on the north side. For food, we really recommend Jupiter for great pizza. It also has outdoor seating, which is perfect given some of the restrictions on indoor seating right now. Yogurt Park is really great for frozen yogurt. Kingpin for donuts, and Abe, which is a staple in Berkeley for pizza as well, and pizza by the slice. So kind of like your New York style. Coming from New York, I love pizza by the slice. So I stopped by Abe's a couple of times. So just a couple of things to note. Once we are all back on campus, that's maybe about 30,000 undergraduates in the same area trying to navigate during lunchtime or breakfast rush before classes. So we definitely want you to, of course, support the local businesses near campus, but be, mindful of your time. So, you coming in late because Cafe Milano had a long line to, you coming in late to class is not an excuse. And professors also really get annoyed when you come in late with the food that made you late. So make sure that you are using your time wisely, and you're planning for once we all get back on campus, it being a little packed and just, baking in a couple of minutes to make sure you're able to grab your coffee and your food and still make it back to campus on time. So much of your college experience is just that. it's yours. It's not mine. It's not Leslie's. It's not anyone else's. It's not your parents. It's yours. And so it is the perfect opportunity for you to really dive in and make your college journey what you want it to be. So we're not going to tell you which organizations and clubs that you should get involved in. However, we definitely want to highlight that there is a vast array of clubs and organizations and engagement activities on campus. And so much of finding your niche here at Cal is being involved in the community. So whether that's a club community or even an online engagement community, that's what really makes your Cal experience what it is. So if you can't find a club, start one. Like, that's how clubs get started. There are hundreds of clubs, and so many of the organizations that were started were by a group of students who noticed a void and decided to fill it. So what I am doing now is putting in a list of student organizations in the chat. So obviously the top of mind for many of the students that we've been meeting with, and of course top of mind for us even as graduate students, is how will student organizations be operating in this transition to remote learning for the fall. And we, to be completely honest, are uncertain. So much of this is uncertain terrain. We've never been here before. It's very unprecedented. So one of the things that we've really been encouraging students to do, if you use that link that's in the chat, you will find a list to all the student organizations, and all of them have contact information. If not an email, they have phone numbers. And we tell students, check out the different list of student organizations, see which one you think you would jive with, and reach out to them. Ask them how they're engaging their members remotely and during this time. Ask if there's any way that you can get involved, even as you prepare to transition into Cal. And I think that Cal is a very community-oriented place. And so I think people are yearning to have those touch points with people. So go ahead and, put out the first, ask, and make sure that you get involved on campus, whether we are remote or in person. That building of community is really important.
Yeah, and building off of what Jasmine was saying about how important it is to build that community, we really, really encourage all of you as you transition into Cal to kind of see this time as an opportunity to turn a new leaf, and you can completely start over. You can completely come in and decide the tempo of how you want to engage socially and connect with this community. So allow yourself to kind of explore your budding curiosities, engage with new opportunities, reach out to people, network, find community, whether it's on campus or off campus. But let yourself do that, even if it feels like it's a little awkward or a little maybe difficult, or like you're the only one doing it and people are going to think it's weird. You're absolutely not. I think everyone who's coming in, like Jasmine is saying, is yearning for community, and is here ready and willing to kind of bridge that with you. So let yourself explore. And one last thing that I did want to know in relation to the organizations is that typically during the school year, when we are all on campus, we have this massive event called Calapalooza that usually starts at the very beginning of the fall semester, where the 500 plus organizations, student run, that we have on campus preview their orgs. And this is like a great opportunity for students to kind of explore and get to know what these organizations are. But because we don't know what's going to happen, and because we know we're not going to be in person, we are not quite sure what the status of Calapalooza is this year or the form that it will take. So definitely, kind of stay up to date with that, and try to, as you reach out to these organizations, inquire about what these opportunities for engagement will look like as we go into the fall. And then for those of you who are going to be, back at home and are not going to be joining us this fall, we still encourage you to try to find community, engage with the Cal community. So an idea that we had when we were dialoguing about what that could look like for folks that are a little bit further away is, we don't know what the status of this actually is, but we thought maybe you could reach out and see if there's Facebook groups around your incoming cohort or your incoming class for Cal, to see if there's other students in your area who are also going to be coming to Cal. And if there isn't a Facebook group and you feel inclined, we highly encourage you to start it, because I promise you that if you are looking for community in your area, there's for sure someone else who's also looking for community in your area, and you can connect and kind of come in already knowing someone not only from your area, but is also coming to Cal in the future. So we encourage you to build those relationships. We know and we acknowledge that these are really, really unprecedented times. Navigating and transitioning to college during this time is, I can imagine, very scary and full of a lot of ambivalence, but we do luckily have a lot of technological tools that are allowing us to bridge these gaps. So I, as mentors, really encourage all of you to use them and to feel empowered by them. So we've come to the end of our webinar, where we're going to go ahead and open it up to questions and answers. We encourage you to please ask any question. I don't know what it's been looking like on the end of the Q&A as we were doing the presentation, but if there's any point of the presentation, even if it was at the beginning, we're happy to answer any questions that may have come up.
Here's a question. Milo asks, where do we sign up for the mentorship program and how does it work? And he's probably talking about the LMS Mentors.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. We're going to go ahead and plug in the link to our website. And just to give you a little bit of background, the LMS Mentors, we function in various capacities. We offer these workshops typically during the school year, similar to what this webinar kind of the form that it's taken. We also offer one-on-one meetings that we call, they're like office hours or student hours that we offer. We're offering them through the summer, and we're also going to be offering them throughout the school year. So you're welcome to make an appointment on our website with any of the mentors, where you can go and kind of preview all of our profiles and get a better idea of, while we all do the same work, we all have our own strong suits or our own interests. So if there's one mentor who you feel more inclined towards, you can go ahead and book an appointment with them, and you will have an hour appointment available, and we will meet and we can discuss whatever is coming up. And as Jasmine was saying, we do many, many things. So it could range from transitioning to college, to major exploration, to study strategies, to time management, to looking for an internship, to wanting to apply to graduate school. Basically any and all you can throw our way, and we will let you know if we can help you in some way.
And another thing to note is that this is a pretty low commitment. So there is no way it's not a program per se where you are assigned to a specific mentor and you have to meet with them every month or every week. This is definitely taking your pick and really just choosing what's best for you. So we have had students who have come to visit me and then said, oh, I want to meet with Leslie the next time, or I want to meet with Mathilde, which is one of our other LMS mentors. And so they kind of jump around and they have that freedom to do so. Or we have folks who are recurring and they come back every week or every couple of weeks. And we have a ton of just one-off meetings where they wanted to have a couple of questions answered. They schedule time, and that was helpful for them. So it's really whatever is best for you. It's pretty low commitment. We love our recurring students and we love building those relationships. We also love to help one-off as well. So I included the link to the website in the chat. And like Leslie said, we are having summer office hours. So we're happy to chat about any of these things more in depth that we covered here today, or any other things that we maybe haven't had a chance to talk about.
There's another one. What are some ways that you suggest in spending extra time we may have in this time? What are some of the ways you suggest spending the extra time that we may have now in ways that can further our interest or build our resume?
That's a great question. I think one of the things I actually love to do, and I really encourage students to do, is just to look up people on LinkedIn, or once you have a Handshake account, which is the the program or the platform that we use, it's very similar to LinkedIn. It's a way to search alums from Cal and also get opportunities for jobs. But one of the things that I love to do is search LinkedIn and look for jobs or look for people who have a job that I'm interested in, even remotely interested in. And what I do is like look up the job or look up that person and kind of go through some of their network and see like are other people in this role as well. And I look what their path was. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I am going to take their exact next steps. But it's just helpful to see. And so one of the things that we tell students all the time is that like, what you do after Cal is not, you know, the end all be all is not your major. So much of it are the experiences that you have. So I was an English major for undergrad and I'm now in sociology. So I definitely took a pivot, but I was able to look at people who had similar roles and were doing similar things that I was interested in, checked out their stuff on LinkedIn, did a little, you know, stalking, maybe light stalking on Google, and got a chance to see different opportunities that I could engage in. So I did Teach for America. I did a couple of other things, Education Pioneers, and I found these opportunities from people who were doing similar things on LinkedIn. So that's one thing that you can do. That's also kind of fun because you get a chance to hear, I think coming into college, you think of like very narrow tracks of what, you know, jobs are. You could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be a teacher. It feels very narrow. And then when you actually get a chance to see the full scope of things by actually looking for folks who are in that industry, you see that there's so many more opportunities out there. So check out a couple of jobs or job postings even. Check out people who are doing the work that you like to do or that you're interested in, and see what are some of the things that they did so that you can maybe say like, okay, when I get back on campus, I'm going to check this organization out or maybe look into this major.
Thank you. Jasmine, I would also add too, for preparing for college, for those of you who feel like you are undecided, which I want to say I know is many, 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 many of you, as it should be, because college is a time to explore. I highly recommend previewing the major maps that they have made for LNS. I wonder if we could plug that into the chat. The major maps are basically just these maps that give you a preview of the majors, not all of them, but many of the majors that we offer in LNS, and they give you a really, really good idea of what that major might look like, what the timeline for that major might look like. So if you have time on your hands and you're feeling like a little scattered and you want to start exploring what you might want to be majoring in, as Jasmine was saying, this does not define you and will not define the job that you get in the future. But if you are thinking about that exploration, we highly recommend the major maps. They're a resource that we use with students all the time when they come and talk to us about major exploration.
Are any more last minute questions before we wrap everything up? Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. As Leslie and I mentioned, we are happy to continue this conversation through a one-on-one meeting over the summer. So we are definitely open for one-on-ones and for office hours. Again, you can go to our website and click and you can schedule it online. It will just come through your calendar. So it will already be in your office calendar. So that's, you know, one great way you're already starting with your time management tools. And we're happy to do this over Zoom. We would love to continue to stay in touch as you prepare to come into Cal. Congratulations again. This is an amazing accomplishment. I know things may have been a little scary and very weird, even with graduation, in the spring and transitioning here. But this is an amazing, amazing accomplishment. We are so excited to have you as Cal Bears, and welcome to Cal. Oh. Is there another question?
I'll answer.
Okay.